Comic Comic books. A very misunderstood medium of literature. That sounds very pretentious, and I promise this is going to be a very extremely lowbrow video, but I'm probably doing a terrible job at explaining why this is misunderstood. I thought I'd make a video talking about why I think comic books are pretty misunderstood, because I got back into reading comic books last year. I read them when I was a kid, but after reading them, at least from conversations that I've had, there's just, I don't want to say a stigma, but there's just something about comic books going on where people don't think that you can actually tell a mature, really a lot of depth in a story that has explores a lot of themes and yada yada yada. People just think it's MCU, DCU kind of superheroes, like, the Marvel quips, like, "Oh, I didn't see that coming" type.
Actually, I'm planning to threaten you. We have a Hulk. Uh-oh.
Okay, so I'm currently editing this video, and I'm realizing very quickly that I don't know how to speak. And I'm realizing the more I watch this, I feel like I'm not using any good words. I use literature, and I'm using depth so many times. I'm just critiquing myself as I'm going here. So if you're thinking the same thing, I'm right there with you. So you can judge me all you want. It's okay, because I'm feeling the same way. So I'm kind of here just to explain my thoughts about comic books, some things that I've read. So I'm going to show you my current collection to show you why I'm extremely qualified to talk about this matter, because look at my collection. I chose that I read these things, I guess. All right, one sec. Oh my God. Okay. So I have them in my hand. And obviously from what you could tell, I can't see my camera, so I'm hoping this is showing, but based on how many comic books I have, I obviously am extremely qualified to talk about this, because look how many I am. No, I'm not. I'm just someone that got into it recently, and I used to like them a lot as a kid, and I don't know, I think maybe if I make this video, maybe you might get one of you guys, whoever watches this, to go pick up a comic book and try it out for yourself, to realize that there's more to the genre than just, Captain America and Iron Man and Thor giving out their little quips. Probably just interject a little Marvel quip here to show exactly what I'm talking about.
Stephen Strange, you are now called before the Illuminati. Meet the smartest man alive, Dr. Sheldon Cooper. Bazinga!
But I digress. I say that a lot, by the way. So let me put this shit down real quick. So comic books. I feel like whenever we're talking about comic books, or if you bring up comic books in a conversation, especially with someone who reads books, or really just someone who doesn't read books, there's a little bit of that stigma that either they're childish or they're not in-depth material, and it's just superheroes, and it's all fantasy, it's all sci-fi, which, yeah, it's true, a lot of them fall into that. There's some that aren't. There's plenty of them that aren't. They're not the ones that interest me, but I'm kind of here talking about how superhero stories can actually have depth to them, where it's not just like the good guy is the bad guy, but it actually makes you think maybe the good guys might be bad guys sometimes. I know like shows like The Boys and stuff that covers this, but comic books...
Actually, graphic novels.
Okay. Graphic novels. Some people call them graphic novels. Look, I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to say it's a comic book. I do think they are graphic novels, but I'm just going to say comic books from here on out. So if I'm pissing off someone in the community that reads comics more than I do and is a lot more passionate about it, I'm sorry. But here's my thoughts. I thought, what better way to explain depth in a story than, we'll start with kind of the first one that made me go, wow. These things actually are telling some extremely well thought, deep themed stories about superheroes, but also just like our world in general. And I thought, why not then Watchmen by Alan Moore. I mean, shit, there's a reason why this book is like on Time's like 100 best novels of all time, because it's really good and the writing is extremely good. Yeah, it's got pictures in it, plenty of them. Here, I'll show you. Oh my God, there's Dr. Manhattan. Really good art, but really good words too. When I was reading this book, I actually had to pull open When I was reading this book, I actually had to open up a dictionary to look up some of these words because my monkey brain just could not comprehend them. But that gave me a lot of reason why to make this in the first place. It made me have to look up words. But Watchmen is an interesting story because some of y'all have probably seen the Zack Snyder movie, which I had never seen the movie before reading the book. I read the book, went back to the movie, and I was disappointed. The TV show on HBO, so much better. Well, like the short series, like the animated show, way better. It tells the story in a lot more detail. The story of Watchmen is that pretty much imagine a world where superheroes are kind of legal, and they're like Batman. You know, they're not technically super in nature, but they kind of work with the government. They have government budgets, and they are, you know, they're good people. It's kind of like almost similar in The Boys too, how it's, I wouldn't say there's like a corporate element to it, not as much in this book, but you know, they're like, there's heroes in like every city, and there's kind of groups and teams and yada, yada, yada. Like the Six, is that what they're called in The Boys? I haven't seen The Boys in a while. But superheroes then become illegal, and all of these super people are kind of working as vigilantes if they are maybe kind of working as like secret government operatives. These heroes are kind of shitty people at the end of the day, especially like the comedian Rorschach. I mean, he's kind of an anti-hero in that sense. Like, he's doing it for good reasons, but he's kind of a terrible dude. So something about Watchmen that really stood out to me, that was the first time I kind of seen this in a book that kind of, at least in a superhero book, that made me go, wow, that's actually an interesting perspective, is that when Dr. Manhattan gets introduced. And if you don't know what Dr. Manhattan is, he's a guy that was working on the Manhattan Project back in the day, experiment gone wrong. Dude gets obliterated into atoms in quantum material, and then he finds out a way to be able to reassemble his atoms, and now he's a man, but no longer a man anymore. He's like got the build of a dude. He's kind of jacked, but he has completely transcended upon anywhere that a human could ever be, ever. And so I thought it was really interesting how there's all these heroes that are in the story, but none of them were super. And the first time that someone genuinely super gets introduced into the world, that is almost like a god among men, like the way that Alan Moore writes the reactions to them was really interesting, because it's like it's like a really eerie feeling. Like, this guy is like he looks like a man, but he's blue, but he's also like a god. Like, if he really wanted to, he could wipe out everybody. And I think that's such a weird perspective, because we look at like Marvel, and we look at DC, and we look at like Superman, and we look at Green Lantern, and we look at Scarlet Witch and stuff like that. I'm just bringing up random examples here of people that are like, they're kind of generally accepted as people at the end of the day, but some of these people are super. Like, they can completely obliterate us if they wanted to, if they were to like change face. And I thought it was really interesting how people don't really know how to react to someone like Dr. Manhattan. Like, it's a good thing, especially if you're an American, because he's pretty much like a poster boy for America. He's aware of this. He has his own plans. He can see into the future and into the past, but his own timelines, whatever. He's cracked. You know what I mean? Like, he's playing on easy mode. He could just obliterate every single person in the world. And that's just like one thing that I'm kind of touching on here. I'm probably doing a terrible job at explaining why this is misunderstood. But I guess the point I'm trying to make, especially about Watchmen, is that at the end of the day, the base story is technically a superhero story, a revenge tale, you can call it, a story of vengeance, like many of them are. But it's the political aspects of it, the themes of McCarthyism, authoritarianism, militarism. Oh my God, I can't speak. And also just like, you know, Rorschach himself, he's kind of a really pessimistic person, and he's like doing things for good, but in such terrible ways. I think, you know, when people think about comic books and how they might be a kid's story, it's like, this is the furthest you can get from that. Like, it is nowhere near a kid's story. Like, and some people may argue in the comments, you know, someone who's actually a comic book aficionado, they may be like, oh, well, you know, there's plenty of other stories that are better than Watchmen. I would say overrated, and I'd say fuck you. You know, it's pretty good. That's just my opinion. If you haven't read it, just go pick up a book and read it. Give it a try. You might actually be surprised about how good it is. Next one that I want to touch on too, that is also pretty fascinating. And if you paused and you looked at all the ones in my collection that I'm building, I should say, you would see there is a pretty common theme among it, which is Batman. Because I'm just a pretty big fan of Batman. I think Bruce Wayne as a character is very interesting. I think Batman as a character is very interesting. Plus, all of the villains in the Batman universe are just, I love the transition of like Batman and Robin, like the old TV show with Adam West, to like the book I'm about to talk about, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. Hold on, let's see. Ooh, there it is. It looks good. It's actually a great cover. Where was I going with this? I completely forgot. I completely forgot where I was going with this. I lost my thought. But the reason why I'm talking about Batman: The Dark Knight Returns is because I think similar ways to Watchmen, it's a very grown-up take on Batman. So if you go from Batman to Robin back in the day with Adam West to Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, it is like a completely different tone, completely different vibe. It's not like you know, and it's all like colorful and stuff, and they like kind of punch and kick, Like, no, Batman is like eviscerating people, and he's not killing people, but he's demolishing them. Similar to like the memes and stuff online. If you ever played the Arkham games before, like Batman is he knows how to fight. He knows how to cripple you, but not kill you. He's kind of brutal in that sense.
Let's talk about Riddler. I'll tell you everything. Thank you.
I think The Dark Knight Returns is so interesting to me because, kind of touching back real quick on Watchmen, this is kind of like a smaller subplot of the story. I wouldn't say smaller, but it kind of comes a little bit later. But Superman is in the Dark Knight Returns. Superman is he's at contention with Batman because Batman really wants to kill the Joker and is kind of struggling with, you know, why do I not kill the Joker, and why do I keep on sending him back to Arkham and keep on sending him back to jail, even though I know he's just going to get out and he's just going to kill more people. And in this book, the Joker kills a lot of people. And it's like, you know, if Batman were to just kill the Joker, then all of these problems would go away, and the Joker kind of wants Batman to kill him, but he just won't because his whole motto is justice. And Superman is trying to prevent Batman from doing so. But I think it's interesting because Superman is also kind of like an agent for the government, thinking that he's doing things for good, when really he's getting on Batman for not killing the Joker, who is a mass murderer, psychotic criminal. But Superman would easily just kind of plow out an entire aircraft carrier full of soldiers because they're playing for the enemy team. So it's like, it kind of goes back to that question of like, is Superman really good in this book? Is he really the good guy? He's getting on Batman because he says you need to do things for justice like I do, but Superman kills people on the drop of a dime. It goes back to my whole point of like, look, it's Batman, but this isn't really for like kids. Like there's a lot going on under the surface here. There's a lot to read into. And even another subplot of the story too, how interwoven in different like arcs of the storyline, there's a recurring theme of these news sections that pop up that kind of talk about how the news would take something on the story, for example, like Superman, how he clears out an entire aircraft carrier, and they frame it in a way that takes the light off of Superman, but also takes the light off of what's going on in the first place, which may be like a way that, who is it, Frank? Who wrote this? Frank Miller. The way Frank Miller may feel that the news stations in America kind of do the same thing. They kind of twist the story and bend it to fit a certain agenda, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you lean on. That's just the reality of what's going on. At first, I didn't really like it as much, and then when I went back to it, I was like kind of fascinated by it because I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting. I started to enjoy those parts of the book a lot more. And then another thing that I thought was interesting too was Batman himself. How, you know, in this book, Batman is like, I think 60 years old. Both of these books, it's been months since I read them, so I'm kind of recurring details from months ago of reading these, so please forgive me. This may suck or may not suck. I don't know. Oh my God, my brain is moving too fast. I can't even think about what I'm going to say. Holy shit. He's struggling with his identity to the point of like, okay, at what point am I Bruce Wayne and what part am I Batman? And is Batman ever really gonna die? It's almost like at this point in his life, like he's more Batman than he is Bruce Wayne. And also paired with the fact of like, why am I doing this for justice? Why do I let people like the Joker get away and try to put him away in jail, even though we all know that he's gonna get out of jail, he's gonna go on and kill more people, and then Batman's gonna go get him, beat the hell out of him, put him back in jail, and then the cycle is gonna repeat. When he really could just like hit him 2 extra times and give him permanent brain damage, or just shut him out forever and kill his ass. But he won't, because his parents got killed by a murderer, and so Batman swore to himself that he will never kill a criminal because he would pretty much stoop to their level, yada, yada, yada. Fascinating how when comic books, and especially how they're portrayed in media, Yeah, you do sometimes get a couple of these stories that are kind of told with this amount of depth, but Chronicle is kind of a good example about, what starts off as good and then goes into evil. I just made a shitty point. Oh my God, that was a shitty point. But what I'm trying to say is pick up a comic book. Give it a try. A lot of these aren't really all that long. Some of them are only like 300 pages, and it's a lot of pictures and the text isn't all that big. And, you can kind of read through them, but even though the text isn't all that big, they're actually telling real solid stories in these that it just goes more than just Batman fights the bad guy and the good guy wins and the bad guy loses and that's the end of the day. Like, no, they're tackling a lot more stuff beneath the surface. I don't know, I feel like they're hitting a lot more beats than people give them credit for, and I feel like people just write off comic books for that reason alone because they think it's childish, they think it's extremely nerdy, and there's nothing I can get out of this. I think that's false. So pretty much food for thought for today is pick up a comic book, go give it a read, and I think you just give it a try. You never know what you might find with this. Hopefully this was entertaining. I'm still trying to figure out what the format of these videos is even going to be. I'm kind of just sitting in front of this microphone, just away about a thought that I have in my brain, and maybe you guys might find this entertaining, maybe you won't. I don't care. I guess I'll just keep making them anyway because it allows me just to take what's in my head and just put it out there into words, whether they're coherent or not. It's just out there. But yeah, go pick up a comic book, give it a read. You never know. You just might like it. Comic books! Comic books.